Tu Diep. Hello everyone, wishing you all good health and peace in life. Love, the deeper it runs, the sharper it cuts when lost. James, once too proud to admit, now carries an ache no one sees. In the quiet moments, he finally understands, no one, no matter how kind or beautiful, could ever replace Tu Diep in the chambers of his heart. She wasn't just someone he loved. She was the part of him he never knew he couldn't live without. The rain that evening was heavier than usual, falling like a curtain across the city skyline. From the tall window of his penthouse, James stood a lone CEO, billionaire, and the man once feared by his rivals. Yet tonight, he felt more fragile than ever before. His hand tightened around a small, worn photograph of her Tu Diep smiling in a simple "Oh Baba," holding a basket of fresh eggplants. That image was etched in his memory, a stark contrast to the chaos of boardrooms and business betrayals he had lived through. For months now, she had been gone, and every second without her felt like a slow death. James had once believed that power could fix anything, but no empire he built, no money he owned, could bring her back. He had lost her not because he stopped loving her, but because he loved her too much to drag her into his storms. It began the day he gave her a new phone, hoping to help her study and stay close. Her eyes lit up with innocent joy, a rare light in his weary world. But love turned bitter when his company fell under attack. A rival, John, had orchestrated a devastating betrayal, pulling out investments, sabotaging James's water dam project, and sending the company into chaos. Tu Diep stood by him. She sold vegetables at the market by day, cooked for him by night, and held him when the world seemed to fall apart. But James feared for her safety. John had discovered their connection, and James knew too well what enemies like him were capable of, so James chose distance. He pretended he didn't care, let her walk away, even when every bone in his body screamed to hold her close. He thought he was protecting her. But now, standing in the silence of his cold apartment, he realized, the deeper the love, the more painful it is. He remembered her laughter when they ate banquet on the roadside, her soft fingers wiping the rice powder from his cheek. He remembered her tears the day the police arrived at his house when his business collapsed and accusations flew like daggers. She believed in him, even when the world didn't. Now, John had been exposed. James had faked illness to lure John into confessing his crimes, an elaborate plan that worked. But the victory felt hollow without her beside him. "I've won the war," he whispered, "but I lost my reason to fight." He returned to her village one evening, just as the sun melted into the rice fields. There she was, standing under the banana tree, brushing dust off her dye, unaware that the man she once loved was watching her with haunted eyes. "Tu Diep," he called. She turned. For a heartbeat, everything stilled: the wind, the trees, time itself. "I never stopped loving you," he said, voice trembling. "I thought leaving you would keep you safe. I was wrong." Tears welled in her eyes. She had waited too long to hear those words. And as the sun dipped behind the mountains, she walked toward him, one step at a time, until she was close enough to whisper, "I never asked you to protect me. I only asked you to love me." James pulled her into his arms, burying his face into the only place he had ever called home, her heart. Because now, more than ever, he understood, no one could replace Tu Diep. The wind rustled through the leaves as James held Tu Diep in his arms, afraid that if he let go, she would disappear again. But this time, she didn't run. Her warmth, her silence, the steady beat of her heart, everything about her was real. Still, between them lay memories too sharp to ignore. They sat together on the old wooden bench outside her house, where the scent of jasmine drifted in the night air. Tu Diep poured him a cup of hot lotus tea. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't speak. James broke the silence. "I missed everything, your smile, your voice, the way you fought for me, even when I gave you every reason not to." Her gaze remained fixed on the moon above. "And I missed you too. But you hurt me, James. You left without a word. You made me feel disposable." James looked down, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought I was protecting you, John. He knew about us. He threatened you. I thought if I made you hate me, he would lose interest." Tu Diep blinked back tears. "I didn't need a protector. I needed a partner." James swallowed hard. "I know." They sat in silence again, only the sound of crickets filling the space between them. Eventually, she spoke softly, vulnerably. "Do you still love me, James?" He turned to her, eyes burning with intensity. "More than anything, I tried to forget you. Tried to bury myself in work. But no matter how far I ran, you were there in every song, every quiet moment. I realized no empire means anything if you're not in it with me." Tu Diep looked into his eyes. There was pain in hers, but also longing. "I'm afraid, James, afraid this love will break me again." He gently took her hand, then let it break us and rebuild us together. The next few weeks were quiet, peaceful, almost unreal. James stayed in the village, waking up to the sound of roosters instead of office alarms. He helped Tu Diep pick vegetables, even tried and failed to make her mother's famous quechua. But peace, they knew, was borrowed time. One morning, as Tu Diep sold produce in the village market, a man stood by the well, watching her. He wore a gray jacket, eyes sharp beneath a layer of grime. It was Min, the former CEO turned street guitarist. Once poor and invisible, now rich again, thanks to a hidden fortune and a sudden return to the business world. And he remembered Tu Diep. From afar, he watched her. She was different from the women he had known, soft-spoken, resilient, real. He had once seen her with James, laughing in a phone store. He didn't know back then she was his Tu Diep. But now he knew, and he had returned with purpose. At the same time, James began rebuilding his company from the ashes. New partners, cleaner deals, but the name John still lingered in whispers. John had fled the country after the failed attempt to destroy James, but his network, shady, powerful, and dangerous, remained. Rumors reached James that John had one final move left, a document that could destroy his entire business legacy, linking James's father to a scandal involving stolen land and illegal deals decades ago. James kept the secret buried. He couldn't let Tu Diep know, not yet. Not when they were just learning how to love again. But secrets, like shadows, always find their way into the light. And Tu Diep, she had begun to suspect, the calls James took late at night, the distant looks, the heaviness in his embrace. The morning sun filtered through thin white curtains into Diep's room. She stood by the window, her arms folded tightly, watching James talk on the phone near the rice field. His tone was hushed, his back turned, again. She had heard just enough to feel the sting. Words like cover-up, father, and land dispute weren't meant for her ears, but they clung to her heart like thorns. When James returned, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're quiet this morning," he said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Tu Diep leaned away slightly. "I could say the same about you." "Who are you talking to?" James hesitated. "It's business. A few loose ends I'm tying up." She met his eyes, calm but firm. "And does it involve your father?" The silence that followed said more than words. James dropped his gaze. "There are things I haven't told you. Things I'm ashamed of." Tu Diep's voice trembled. "You promised we'd face things together, James, but you're still carrying the past like it's your cross alone." He reached out, but she stepped back. "Don't push me away again," she whispered. "If you do, I won't come back a second time." That same day, Min returned to the village. Dressed modestly, his guitar slung across his back, he visited the market where Tu Diep sold vegetables. He didn't expect her to notice him, but she did. "Min?" she said, surprised. "You're back." He smiled, wiping dust from his brow. "I never really left, just took the long road home." They shared tea in a quiet corner of the market. Min played a soft melody as villagers passed by, smiling at the familiarity. Tu Diep watched him, his fingers moving gently over the strings. "You really love music," she said. Min looked up, eyes soft. "Music listens when people don't." There was a pause. "And I remember you, Tu Diep, from that day outside the phone store. You were with James, you laughed like the world was yours." Her smile faded slightly. "It wasn't." "I know," Min said gently. "And I'm not here to replace anyone. But if ever you find yourself needing someone who asks for nothing, I'll be around." Tu Diep looked at him, heart heavy. Part of her longed for a simple life, one without secrets, without betrayal. Min was kind, safe. But her heart still beat in sync with a man who had hurt her and yet still lived inside her soul. Meanwhile, James received a sealed brown envelope. Inside was a letter written by John, sent from an undisclosed location. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone, but your empire won't survive much longer." Enclosed is a signed document proving your father's involvement in the 1998 land seizure scandal. The same land Tu Diep's uncle lost. "What will you do now, CEO?" James gripped the letter, his knuckles white. His father had lied, again, and now the truth threatened everything, not just the company, but his relationship with Tu Diep. He had two choices: expose the truth and risk losing everything, or bury it and live with the lie. But Tu Diep deserved more. So did the future he dreamed of with her. True love is not about possession or perfection. It is about honesty, sacrifice, and choosing each other, even when everything else falls apart. James had everything: wealth, power, and status, but still, he nearly lost Tu Diep because he hid the truth. Love built on silence and secrets eventually crumbles. It takes courage to tell the truth, especially when it may hurt the person you love, but only in truth can love truly grow. Tu Diep stood at the crossroads between comfort and complexity. She learned that a gentle smile can't erase deep wounds, and that sometimes choosing love means choosing to walk through fire, not away from it. Min taught us that even if your heart is quiet, it still beats. You don't need to fight to be seen, but you must be willing to show up with sincerity. The deeper the love, the more painful it becomes when trust is broken. But it is in the pain that we discover what truly matters. James realized too late that no amount of money or success could bring peace if the one you love no longer feels safe in your arms. He thought protecting Tu Diep meant keeping her in the dark, but love does not grow in shadows. Tu Diep, though gentle and kind, showed strength that many overlook. She walked away not because she stopped loving James, but because love without respect and honesty becomes a prison. And yet, the heart is not made of stone. It remembers. It forgives not easily, but fully when met with real change. This story reminds us, love without truth will eventually fade. Courage is not just fighting enemies, it is fighting for those you love, even when you're afraid to lose them. Sometimes walking away is how we teach others to value us. And sometimes we must lose what we love to learn how to love better. In the silence between James and Tu Diep, a louder truth emerged. Real love returns not when begged, but when deserved. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with us. The deeper the love, the more painful it is, but perhaps the deeper the pain, the more powerful the healing. With all our hearts we begin.